MLB teams have completed thousands of trades in the history of the league, many of which are not noteworthy for a number of reasons, whether it not having any real effect or whatever it may be. But within those thousands of trades, I found four that stood out to me, not because they were impactful, but quite honestly because it was the opposite of that. With the trade deadline coming up, I thought it would be fun to dive into the four MLB players that were traded for themselves. If you guys go on to like this video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below on what topics I should make videos on next. The very first instance of a player being traded for themselves happened all the way back in 1962. Harry Chiti, a catcher that was best known for his ability to handle the knuckleball, was constantly changing teams throughout his career off the back of having served in the U.S. Army during the Korean War. In 1962, he had been acquired by the Cleveland Indians, and before ever playing a game for the franchise, was traded to the newly founded expansion franchise New York Mets on April 25, 1962, for a player to be named later. He would actually end up playing 15 games for the Mets with a .195 batting average before ultimately being returned to the Indians on June 15, 1962, when the two franchises could not agree on the player to be named later. As a result, Chiti became the first ever player to be traded for themselves, as he was subsequently named the player to be named later in the same deal. Sadly, Chiti would only play 2 more seasons, all at the AAA level, before retiring in 1964. The second trade in which a player was acquired for themselves happened in 1980, when Brad Gulden was traded from the New York Yankees alongside $150,000 to the Seattle Mariners for Larry Milbourne and a player to be named later. Gulden at the time had only played in 45 career games with the Yankees and Dodgers before this trade took place. He would only play in about 8 games after being acquired by the Mariners, posting a .188 batting average and only scoring 1 run. He would be sent back to the Yankees on May 18, 1981 as the player to be named later. He would end up bouncing around the league before retiring in 1986 after 182 career games. Funnily enough, this would not be his first time and only time leaving the Yankees before being quickly reacquired thereafter. On April 5, 1982, he was traded again from the Yankees to the Montreal Expos for Bobby Ramos. He would only play 5 games for the Expos before being sold back to the Yankees in the offseason. So not technically a trade for himself, but still pretty funny nonetheless. It would only be 7 years until the next player would be traded for themselves. This time occurring in 1987 when Dicky Noles, a career relief pitcher, was traded from the Chicago Cubs to the Detroit Tigers. Dicky had won the World Series with the Philadelphia Phillies in 1980 and was known mostly for his pitch up and inside to George Brett during that 1980 series, which he had admitted was intentional. He had recently re-signed with the Cubs in April of 1987, and on September 22nd of that season, he was traded to the Detroit Tigers for a player to be named later. Teams were unable to agree on a player to complete the trade, and as a result, Noles was returned to the Chicago Cubs on October 23, 1987. He had only appeared in 4 games for the Tigers, pitching in 2 total innings. Noles would only pitch in 3 more MLB games, 2 in 1988 with the Baltimore Orioles and 1 with the Phillies in 1990 before he would retire in the following offseason. The last time that a player was traded for themselves happened quite recently in 2005 when John McDonald was dealt from the Toronto Blue Jays to the Detroit Tigers. McDonald at the time of the trade was a serviceable utility infielder for the Cleveland Indians and had just been acquired by the Blue Jays for Tom Mastry. The trade to the Tigers occurred on July 22, 2005, with the Blue Jays acquiring future considerations in the trade, which basically meant cash consideration. McDonald would play decent in Detroit, hitting to a .260 batting average and driving in 5 runs in 31 total games. Following the season, McDonald would be traded back to the Blue Jays in exchange for cash consideration. This completed the trade to Detroit as well, as he would play 5 seasons in Toronto following the acquisition and be more than serviceable throughout those years before bouncing around the league and finally retiring in 2014 at the age of 39 years old with the Angels. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video and learned something new from it. I have more ideas that I plan on turning into content in the future. If you guys enjoyed this video, please do like, comment, and subscribe. It helps me grow a ton, and there'll definitely be more in the future. Appreciate it, guys.